Excellent. How are we doing? All right. Hopefully not too hungry. I'm going to probably step to the side a little bit because I feel a little bit short next to these tall microphones. But it's good to be here today. I've really enjoyed the discussion so far. So we're going to talk a bit about using the data that we collect, and then how we can use that data more meaningfully, how we can help us create strategies from it, but also how we can empower the business and even impact our retention rates. So we have to do less of the recruiting. So just as a bit of a background, I'm Rachel, I work for ANDigital. So ANDigital is a tech consultancy. We build apps and websites and digital products essentially in agile ways. It's a growing company, about 170 people now. I lead a team there, and we've got the huge task of recruiting about 146 people this year, which is going to be interesting. So data to keep us organised and kind of on the ball is really important for us. You may have seen in the programme that I've got my AND title as well. So everyone at ANDigital has an AND title because we believe in bringing your personality with you through the office door, not kind of leaving it at the door. So mine's fitness guru. So I'm used to wearing a microphone on Thursday nights when I teach body balance at a local gym, but not necessarily speaking to a room of people. So yeah, that's my passion that I bring into the office with me every day. So just wanted to give you that awareness before we carry on, in case you had any questions. Okay, so I'm just going to use this one slide and kind of refer to it as we go through. So creating data and collecting data. How many people currently have to report back on recruitment data either on a weekly or bi-weekly, even monthly basis to either leadership team or excellent? Yeah, so I think it's kind of a key part now of an in-house recruitment team is actually to check and track what it is that we're doing. So every week I currently send out a report from my team. I use our ATS job bite to collect most of it. I talk to my team as well. Some of it we don't necessarily track on our ATS. I use a tool called Pixocharts, which is quite nice. So interactive graphs. It's a nice visual report that I can just send as a kind of a JPEG in an email or a PNG, which is just a nice visual splash of colour and graphs that the leadership team can look at and be like, okay, that's how many people we've interviewed this week, for example. This is how many offers we've had out. And it's one of those things where we track it, but I'm not necessarily sure how mindful we are of actually looking at the data and tracking back the meaning to us as in-house recruiters. A lot of the time, our leadership teams may want to see that data almost as a kind of a justification for having an in-house recruitment team. Or sometimes it's just kind of us ensuring that they know that we're actually really, really busy. But how often do you actually look at it yourselves to actually think, okay, how can I create a strategy from this? What is this information telling me about what we are and what we're not doing? So these graphs are just an example of some of the stuff that I track. But actually, we've actually come across a recent challenge where, as a tech firm, we hire a lot of senior software developers. And for anyone else that's in that industry in this room, I'm sure, and I'd be interested to hear from you afterwards, whether or not you find that challenge as well. And I'm probably sure that you might. And it's got to a point recently, actually, where we knew we had to bring in a certain amount of people by a certain date. And it was actually feeling a bit scary. We only had 4 weeks to go, a lot of senior developers to recruit. We were behind on a couple of start dates, so that had accumulated into that number. So we're looking at this big number and we're thinking, okay, how are we going to do this? Looking at my weekly metrics, how many interviews we're having, how many offers we're sending out, how actually realistic is it currently, the work that we're currently doing, that we're going to hit that target. So that actually, from using that data, from actually looking at with that weekly report, myself and putting myself as a kind of a client to, or a stakeholder to that data, as a team we were able to look at what we needed to do to actually hit that target, which was feeling a little bit scary. So we put together a bit of a funnel, as you can see here, and we said, well actually what's obvious from the get-go is we're not doing enough of certain things. We're not doing enough research, we're not getting enough candidates in at the top of the pipe to actually then trickle down into what we need to have as realistic offers per week. So from that it was a case of, okay, so from how many people we research realistically, how many of those are we going to hear back from? How many of those, once we speak to them, are actually going to be at the standard that we want them to be, that will progress? How many of those can we quickly get into interview, and then at interview, how many of those are probably going to be good and others perhaps not quite the right culture fit, which is a key part of our business, with the fact that we're client facing, so we need people that are client facing as well as the right culture fit. And then into kind of then getting offers out, which is great, but actually how many people are realistically going to accept when it's such a competitive market out there. So from having that conversation, we were actually able to put together a strategy of how we were going to fill and fulfill this target. And it's actually now embedded some really key behaviours in my team that we're going to take through and actually use as a strategy now for hard to fill roles. One of the key things that we did actually was use the data that we already have internally, which we sometimes overlook when we're looking at hard to fill roles. And that's actually the people already in your organisation in those roles. So the first thing that we did was actually organise a focus group with all of the senior software developers we could get on a Monday night, enticing them with beers and pizza to actually understand about them. So what type of meetups do you go to? If you were to look for a job, what would attract you? Where would you look for that job? If you were to run a recruitment event, what would it need to look like to attract you? Are recruitment events even a good idea for kind of people in your market pool and your talent pool? And that was a hugely insightful process, and it just took a couple of hours to understand from there what were the key actions that we needed to move forwards with and what was going to be our strategy even more specifically from there. So that's kind of a good way that I wanted to share with you in terms of using data to help you build a strategy. So first of all, use what you're giving out to your business and maybe reflect on it from your perspective and try to identify the gaps, or what is it currently telling you, and then maybe look at, okay, what do I need to be doing to do what I'm being tasked to do, and then how can I use the most easily accessible data, which is your own workforce, your own people that you might sit across the desk from or see in the kitchen or by the water fountain, to help me feel more informed about the best strategy moving forwards. So that's really helpful for especially hard to fill roles. There's also a key way in which we're using data to, help the candidates feel that they're having an amazing experience even once they've returned their contracts and even once they've joined ANDigital. And this is this kind of little thought cloud over here, if you like. If you think about it, we collate so much information throughout an interview process. Some of that's verbally, depending on the quality of interview feedback you get written, but we get loads. And as recruiters, as relationship builders, we get loads. We know if someone's about to have their first baby, or if what someone's up to at the weekend. As recruiters, we build those types of relationships. We get an idea of who that person is that we're looking to bring into the business. But also throughout the interview process, we should be getting an idea of what are the strengths of this individual, what are their development points. If we were to bring them on board, where would they really succeed? What type of projects, for example, could we see them working on with our clients? Are they receptive to feedback? There's all these kind of key questions that is really key that we collate throughout the interview process. And a lot of the time, actually, interview feedback is just very much a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Should we hire this person or should we reject them, and then we move on? So there's a couple of things that I just suggest maybe thinking about that we've started to in more detail. And that's empowering our interviewers to feel that they are accountable to give us the information we need about that candidate, and enough information. So interview feedback can often be really brief because the person's amazing and it's kind of tick, 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 off you go, offer them. And even when we're giving an offer, we don't have the opportunity to give them any constructive feedback, even if they ask, because it's all so positive and we need them in now. And if it wasn't a great interview, again, the interview feedback can be quite brief, not great, not good for us, not the right fit. The amount of times I've seen that phrase, and that's just really not helpful at all because we don't know why, and therefore we can't collect any data from that as to why, which again loops back to offers rejected or candidates rejected and why. So there's all these key points where we can be really capturing key decision points and information. And I think the first step is making your interviewers aware that this is the type of information that we need to know. And a quick and easy way of doing that is actually looking at the interview evaluations that you ask your people to fill out. And if you don't have one, I'd recommend maybe putting together a bit of a structure so that there are key questions that will actually direct your interviewer to answer. And I always say to my interviews, look at the evaluation form you're going to have to fill out afterwards before you go in, because that might help you in your preparation. So empower the interviewers and get the feedback forms on point so it makes life easier for them. And feel free to reject interview feedback if it's not detailed enough. And that's something that me and my team are doing more and more now, because recruitment isn't something that we do to a business, as you know, it's something we do with it. And everyone that takes part in that process is really accountable. So don't be afraid to ask for more information, especially if you know you're going to have a tough rejection call. And I guess what I'm trying to get at with this process is that through collating all of this information, this really meaningful stuff, you can really enhance your hire's onboarding process. We're now at a point where, as a behaviour, we actually talk to our onboarding team, our academy team, and we ensure that they have the interview evaluations with all these points. So in the induction, and we do 4-week inductions that we call boot camps, whenever we hire someone or a group of people at the same time, they know already, before that person's joined the induction, what their development points are. So therefore, in the training sessions we run, which are going to be most poignant for them and where they might need the most support. We also try to give a bit of background information as well, so when people walk in through the door, they've got that personal touch. So we can say, oh, how how's the family? How was your holiday? You've just been travelling for 6 months. How was that? And so it's collating the hiring yes or no data, but also passing on that personal information as well. We're big believers of rolling out the red carpet for our candidate experience, and we call it the red carpet treatment as an actual thing at ANDigital. And we really believe that that should continue even once you've got the contract signed and back. So all of this data can really help new joiners settle in more easily, and most importantly, once they're through their initial inductions and once they're actually in the business, their hiring manager or line manager has that information in terms of where they think they may need to support them moving forwards, so that it's not kind of a sink or swim situation. We don't have people leaving in very short periods of time. We know that we've told the hiring manager there's a gap here and you're going to have to support them with that. What's your plan? How can we make this easier for them and make this land for them better? So it's all about that kind of induction feedback and supporting each person even as they join. So I guess the key messages that I wanted to get across today was track your key metrics, of course, and if you're not, I definitely recommend it because it's quite interesting, but then don't fall into the habit of just kind of sending and forgetting it at the end of every week or whenever you need to send out those reports. Look back at them from yourself and have a look at what it's telling you. Have a look at what it's not telling you. Where are your gaps and where perhaps do you need to look at placing more appropriate data to help you realise what you need to do. And from that, you can really create a strategy. Break it down into quarter if that helps, in terms of what you want to achieve, what you want to focus on for that period of time to help you. And recruitment data isn't black and white. There's always the grey areas because we're dealing with people, and it's about allowing other people to realise that and putting a narrative next to, colourful bar charts and stuff. But you know the grey area because you're in the team dealing with it, and so you're already at that advantage to again use that to help you be more efficient and more successful with what you need to do. So consider what you can do, create your strategy, what insight can you gain from your current workforce data, use the people around you. It's great to build relationships. Recruitment's all about storytelling as well, so by getting to know the people in the hard to fill roles, getting to know what they're working on immediately when you're on the phone or you're talking to candidates, it just flows and you can paint an amazing story, as well as it telling you where perhaps you can find more of these people that are so hard to find but so amazing for your business. And then creating insight doesn't have to stop once you've made the hire. Use it to help and support the rest of the business. So actually the people that you're bringing on board, really thank you for the fact that they're there essentially, and they grow, and for a recruiter I think that's probably one of the rewarding things as we see people flourish that we've brought on board. And I guess my if I was to give a top tip, when you're doing all of this, it's a lot of initiative. It's not necessarily your day-to-day. It's about finding the time and the motivation to do this. But tell the business that you're doing this. So we use Slack, which is a great business chat tool to know whatever's going on in the business, loads of little funny chat channels, but one is business news. And whenever we run a focus group like that, or we have someone help us understand a role better or refer someone to us, we always put a shout out to the business and say, thanks so-and-so for doing this, amazing. And especially for referrals, we find that really, really useful, especially drumming up more support as well, especially if you've got quite a lucrative referral scheme. So be your own promoters. No one in the business is probably going to realise or assume maybe that you're doing this, but it's really going to add value to what you do. So empower the business, encourage accountability, and naturally that may happen if you're kind of promoting the work that you're doing.